The text message tone startled me from my book. I glanced down, a message from a sender titled, Sis. Sis? I hadn't heard that one in years, not since Tessa. My breath caught as I tapped the message. Hey sis, long time no chat. Listen, I have a huge favor to ask. I'm preggers. Yay, right? Have my baby shower in a few weeks and wanted to invite you. Also, was hoping you could help contribute to the gift fund. I know it's a lot to ask, but trying to get $10K together for all the baby stuff I'll need. Let me know. $10,000? Was this a cruel joke? The room spun as conflicting emotions whipped through me. Shock that she would ask this. Anger that she would reappear just to exploit me. Pain, remembering the past she had shattered. Everything okay? Owen appeared, concerned eyes searching mine from across the room. I wordlessly passed the phone to him. His expression shifted from curiosity to incredulity. Is she serious with this? He finally asked. His calm steadiness soothed me. I honestly can't tell. My voice trembled. I haven't spoken to Tessa in 3 years, not since she... I trailed off, transported back to dinners growing cold on the table, weeping alone in the dark, divorce papers arriving in the mailbox. Owen moved to embrace me, drawing me back to the present. Unbelievable. After all the pain she caused, now this. His lips pressed tight, containing rising anger. She won't get away with it again. I looked at Owen, this wonderful man who had made me believe in second chances at love. Our marriage had healed wounds left gaping after Tessa's schemes tore my family apart. Now, her brazen request threatened everything we had built anew. I reread her message, incredulous. She must be desperate for money and has no shame asking despite our past. She's counting on you being too polite to refuse. Owen's gaze held mine. If anyone owes anything here, it's Tessa, owing you years of suffering from her lies. My breaths came sharp, old betrayals piercing like daggers. Owen and I had only been married 8 months, but he knew the power Tessa still held over me. I recounted how her deceptions had sunk barbed hooks deep within, the damage inflicted on my former life indelible scars. She had swooped suddenly into my first marriage, weaving intricate tales, painting herself the victim, tearfully claiming my then-husband Scott had promised her a family during a brief affair. Then, proclaiming herself newly pregnant, she persuaded Scott duty compelled him to leave and care for this so-called unborn child. It was all lies, I whispered. Just a ploy to steal Scott away while I pleaded with him to stay. She wanted what I had, my family, my life. Ghosts gathered as I lingered in old ruins. I felt Owen gently guide me back. What she did was unforgivable. I think this baby shower is the perfect chance to finally make her accountable. Owen's eyes flashed with purpose. With care and strategy, her web of lies could come crumbling down. I looked at him quizzically. His tactical mind, honed from years arguing high-profile court cases, was already analyzing angles. What do you mean? We attend this shower, gather irrefutable evidence she faked the pregnancy back then. Once we expose the depth of her deceit, her schemes will catch up with her. His eyes bored intensely into mine, conveying silent reassurance. Trust me, my lungs tightened reflexively. Was I ready to confront the trauma she had inflicted? Unexpected adrenaline flooded me. Yes, something fierce inside me hissed. Okay, I managed, but we'll need proof. Doubt still clung to me. Could we really unmask her before the same friends and family she had previously swayed? Leave that to me. Owen kissed my forehead gently. Now call her back and accept the invitation. Tell her we'll be there with her gift. I noticed a slight smile play at the corner of his mouth. My heart lifted in response. With renewed conviction, I typed a message to the sender titled, Sis. Tessa, what a delightful surprise to hear from you. Of course, Owen and I would be happy to attend your shower and contribute what we can. Please send details. Look forward to celebrating your joyous news. I hit send, then glanced up at Owen. This will be interesting. I managed a smirk to mirror his. Owen chuckled softly. That's an understatement. He pulled me close. Don't worry, by the time we're done, she'll wish she never crawled out of hiding. His lips grazed my ear as he whispered, I promise you she will finally pay. The invitation slid from my fingers as memories flooded back. Me, in a simple white dress, walking joyfully toward a beaming Scott on our picture-perfect wedding day. Candlelit dinners filled with easy laughter and affectionate caresses, a vision for a cozy house to fill with children, golden retriever, and family game nights. dreams for a shared future, now only ashes and echoes of a demolished past. You really loved him. Owen's voice was soft behind me. I turned into his embrace, warmth and strength enveloping me. I did. Before Tessa, we were happy. I thought our life together was everything I wanted. Owen sighed heavily, the sound puncturing the stillness. And she stole all that, turned your world upside down with her tricks. Anger simmered below the surface of his measured tone. I nestled closer, comforted by the solid beat of his heart next to mine, grounding me to the present. Her lies convinced Scott the child was his. He walked out convinced abandoning his family was noble, the right thing to do. My voice broke on the words. The pain of that betrayal still cut deep. She knew exactly how to manipulate him. And you paid the price. Owen's jaw clenched. I gazed up at him. But then I found you. I'm finally happy again. Owen pressed his lips to my hair, breathing me in. I'll always be here, and I swear Tessa will answer for the damage she's caused. I clung to him tightly, our embrace sealing a silent pact against the woman who had shattered my life. Later that night, I lay awake, restless. Owen slept soundly beside me, face smoothed of worry and slumber. My mind churned, transported back through the years by Tessa's message. I pictured Scott's confusion and confliction when she appeared tearful and desperate on our doorstep, claiming he had promised to care for her and the baby now supposedly on the way. At first he had denied everything, but her performances were convincing, forcing doubts to creep in. Until finally, he conceded a brief affair had occurred when we were having problems. Still, he refused to accept the child was his, until the positive paternity test crushed all his protests. I squeezed my eyes shut, blocking out the image seared into my brain. Scott hunched over, head in hands, mumbling, "I have to do the right thing," as my screams echoed off the walls. Storming past Tessa's satisfied smirk as she lingered to offer support to her baby's father. It was the last time I saw Scott. Days later, signed divorce papers arrived with a note pleading forgiveness for having to choose an unborn child who needed him. The injustice still choked me. I had fought ferociously for our marriage those final days, begging Scott to see through her facade. But her web had captured him completely. He left willingly, eager to play hero, and I was left silenced and invisible, discarded tissues in the wake of their departure. Quiet sobs shook my body. The wound felt as raw as the day the ground crumbled under me. Owen's arms encircled me gently. "It's okay. Just let it out." His whisper floated through the darkness. "I'm sorry." I managed between sharp breaths. The memory is so clear. It hurts. "You have nothing to apologize for." Owen's voice hardened. "But Tessa does, for putting you through this pain. She will pay, I promise you that." I turned my tear-streaked face up toward him in the blackness. "Please, just hold me." Owen pulled me fiercely against his chest. I cried until no more tears would come, safe in the harbor of his embrace. I focused on slowing my breath to match the steady rise and fall of his, lulling myself into merciful sleep. Morning sun filtered through curtains, casting everything in an almost ethereal glow. The light softened the sharp edges of grief that had resurfaced in the dark. Owen's arms still encircled me, shielding me as I stirred. "How are you feeling?" His gravelly, just-woke voice intoned close behind me. I exhaled fully, taking inventory. The raging sea of emotion had calmed. I realized something had shifted in the night. The festering wound was exposed, drained, and now on its way to finally healing after years neglected. "Better." I turned to meet Owen's searching gaze. The pain caught me off guard, but letting it out, remembering with you here, I think somehow that helped. Relief flooded Owen's expression. He pressed his lips to my forehead. "Good." His fingers idly played through my curls. "I'll always be right here." I drank in the security his presence exuded, so unlike the turmoil of my former life. Back then, days after Scott left, reality had hit with cruel force. Numbness eroded into panicked sobs once his clothes disappeared from the closets, taking with them the last wisps of a once happy home. The love that had filled each room turned stale in his absence. Empty halls now haunted with loneliness. My hands trembled signing divorce papers granting freedom from the marriage vows now voided. Rage simmered, remembering the false repentant note, pleading understanding for Scott's choice to abandon our life together. The wife so easily discarded struggled beneath the sudden thrust into solo parenting our young son. Stretched thin, juggling new single mom duties, my career stalled. Bills piled up, savings dwindled. Survival became a battle as the terrain shifted under me. Until Owen arrived, radically spinning everything on its axis again years later. My heart lifted, remembering our first date, his attentiveness so contrary to Scott's emotional distance, those final harrowing months. Heart-fluttering energy buzzed between us from the start, escalating quickly. Within a year, we wed on a picture-perfect spring day. What goes through your mind when you remember it all? Owen gently prodded, reading my thoughts. I smiled softly. Mostly gratitude now. The contrast helps me see how much better this is between us. Owen nodded slowly. I still think how Scott reacted was weak. The clearly honorable choice was standing by your marriage. Anger flashed in his eyes. If Tessa tries playing victim this time, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who the real victim is. Sudden revelation paralyzed me. Owen was right. So far, I had only ever been seen as the casualty of circumstance, not intentional harm. Tessa won sympathy, pretending guilelessness, while publicly grieving her unrequited love's rejection. Masterfully crafting herself, the innocent left weeping. Meanwhile, scorn loomed over me, the bitter ex-wife condemned for withholding grace and understanding. Rage threatened to choke me, realizing nothing held her accountable for plotting to sabotage my life. The injustice burned fresh. Owen leaned forward, reading the shift behind my eyes. We've been too passive too long. This baby shower is the perfect stage for exposing her lies. His voice took on a scheming lilt. I have a plan that will turn the tables on her pity party. It's time she gets revealed as the conniving fraud that drove your family apart. Adrenaline flooded my veins, hunger for vengeance competing with trickles of fear at confronting the trauma she inflicted. But refusal to keep playing her helpless victim sounded louder. I swallowed hard, steeling my nerve. Okay, tell me this plan. Owen's eyes glinted like a war room general plotting complex maneuvers. We show up at that baby shower, all doting excitement, gift in hand. We'll pretend the past never happened, give Tessa no reason to suspect we're anything but thrilled for her pending arrival. He paused, building anticipation. But when the time is right, we start sowing seeds of doubt in guests' minds about her credibility, little leading comments that seem harmless but burrow into their subconscious. We prime them for believing she spun lies years back without even realizing that's what we're doing. I leaned forward, pulse quickening. Owen continued, voice lowered conspiratorially. Then once the guests are mentally primed, I'll pull Tessa aside in private for a heart-to-heart. Hit her with all the evidence we've gathered, proving she faked the pregnancy back then with Scott. Watch her construct crumble when she realizes everyone is about to see the Angela she truly is. His eyes burned into mine. It's time for the truth to finally come out and clear your name. Determination roared inside me, hearing his plan unfold. For too long, Tessa had played innocent, while I appeared the scorned, bitter ex. This could rewrite the script, reclaiming my dignity after years silently enduring her villainous facade. One uncertainty needled me. It sounds perfect, except what evidence do we actually have from back then about her pregnancy lies? It was so long ago. What proof is left? Excellent question. Owen's mouth curved slyly. What sealed it for Scott was the positive paternity test, correct? I still have contacts at the fertility clinic we used when struggling to conceive years back. Labs keep samples on file for years. If Tessa faked medical documents, there may be a trail we can trace exposing it. Hope ignited, envisioning definitive proof to convince the world I had spoken truth all along. I sighed aloud. You're a genius strategist. We might actually pull this off. Owen lifted my palms to his lips in a gentle kiss. Oh, we will pull this off, I swear to you. His breath grazed my wrist. That woman will wish she never slithered back into your life. Over the next days, Owen discreetly contacted connections, calling in favors owed, piecing together fragments from the past. Meanwhile, I braced for the imminent confrontation, nerves battling exhilaration, anticipating Tessa's downfall. We passed planning details in hushed exchanges when alone, two rebels plotting a righteous coup. The week of the shower arrived in a swell of turbulent energy. Owen spent the morning of the event finalizing ammunition, photocopies of falsified medical charts, evidence trailing her doctor shopping tactics elsewhere when initial clinic refused her requests. His eyes gleamed, presenting the documents now irrefutably exposing her paternity fabrications years prior. My chest swelled watching his zealous crusade to win justice for wrongs inflicted on my past. I stood tall and steady in a slim black dress and heels, armor for the impending battle. Owen wrapped his arms around me, voice resolute. This is it. Tonight, her lies fall apart. He pulled back, gazing intensely into my eyes. I love you, Lainey. Whatever happens in there, just know the truth will set you free. I blinked back sudden tears at his unwavering support, my pillar through storms past and present. I had to believe his plan would work. We kissed once, fiercely, sealing our pact, then headed out the door, strapped with gift and dossier to confront Tessa at long last. Music and laughter floated from the banquet hall as Owen and I approached, gifts in hand. I hesitated under the balloon archway, the urge to run crashing over me. Sensing my panic, Owen laced his fingers through mine, grounding me. You've got this. His piercing eyes bore strength into my soul. Just enjoy the party. I'll take care of the rest when the time is right. I nodded, lungs tightening as we entered the lion's den. Round tables draped in pastels dotted the room, guests mingling cheerfully over appetizers and mocktails. And there, holding court in the center, glowed Tessa. She looked surprisingly unchanged. Same tacky bleached hair, blood-red talons clutching a mimosa, grating cackle perforating the din. Time collapsed as I catapulted back to the night it all ruptured apart. Tessa had appeared without warning, mascara streaked and distraught on our doorstep so many years ago. Her Oscar-worthy performance convinced Scott of the affair, trapping him in her deceptions until he painfully relinquished our marriage. Bile rose, remembering the smug satisfaction lurking beneath her crocodile tears. Her shrill voice jarred my flashback. "Oh my gosh, Lainey, you came!" Suddenly I was enveloped in clouds of perfume and blinding rhinestones. Before I could respond, she had flounced off, leaving me reeling. Owen appeared whispering, "You've got this," before subtly recoiling from her embrace. I stifled a smirk. We mingled cautiously, nodding hellos to familiar faces who eyed us with thinly veiled surprise. Word of Tessa's engagement to Scott had sparked gossip back then. Yet in all these years, no wedding invitations followed, suggesting perhaps her schemes secured finances, but not his everlasting devotion after all. My pulse quickened, realizing her standing hung precariously on maintaining a flawless facade. Owen played his part masterfully, blending seamlessly into conversations, while interjecting seemingly innocuous comments laced with venom. I overheard him musing, "Didn't expect to see Tessa here after last I heard. And wow, she looks amazing for just having a baby 6 months ago," planting seeds to unravel her crafted identity. We timed bathroom trips strategically, ducking into corners to breathlessly confer on Owen's progress, baiting guests. With subtly cunning effort, he was dismantling her public persona brick behind the cheerful party veneer. The evening wore on intense finesse. Owen continued circling the room. A political candidate working a rally, he was gradually turning the tide toward belief in my truth. I saw raised eyebrows, darting looks exchanged, tremors of doubt spreading through the crowd. Suddenly, Owen was at my side, electric urgency radiating from him. "It's time," he murmured. "Wish me luck." Before I could respond, he was gliding toward Tessa, extending a polite arm to guide her aside. I watches as they crossed the room lined with photos of her posed with Scott and an infant. Props in the fantasy life she had conned her way into obtaining. Quiet panic rose watching Owen's mouth move rapidly as they slipped into the hallway. This was our checkmate move. Would his evidence persuade her web finally collapse? What happened next exploded in a blur. Raised voices pierced the din. Guests turned startled to the hallway as Tessa burst violently through the doors, streaks of mascara ominously reminiscent of her past facades distorting her livid face. "How dare you ambush me here with these lies!" she was shrieking. Owen appeared seconds later, his calculated calm infuriating her further. "You come into my party with some nonsense about me faking medical records?" Mouths gaped around us. Murmurs buzzed through the room. Our allegations apparently confirmed as Tessa self-destructed before our eyes. "Tessa, please lower your voice." Owen's tone remained infuriatingly controlled. "I simply presented you with facts exposing major concerns about your past honesty. We can discuss this privately later if you prefer." A twisted sneer contorted her previously smooth complexion. Oh, I'll discuss this later, all right? My lawyer will be discussing defamation charges with you. You smug bastard, get out! With that, she stormed away, knocking balloons violently in her wake. The room hung suspended in deafening silence before nervous titters resumed. Owen turned slowly to me, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. Well, that went even better than planned, I'd say. All eyes fixed on me as Owen and I stood center stage in the debris of Tessa's latest performance. Shocked faces flashed confusion, recognition, then dawning clarity processing the scene that had unfolded. Owen squeezed my hand subtly as accusations of Tessa's pregnancy deceit now hung palpably in the air. After years enduring her villainous facade, her web was unraveling at long last. I cleared my throat, pulse thrumming. I suppose you're all wondering what that was about. I kept my voice measured, though inside I trembled. Owen and I had discussed this speech, the final blow to dismantle her slippery veneer of innocence. Many years ago, Tessa insinuated herself into my marriage by faking a pregnancy to lure away my husband. Audible gasps punctuated the silence. I pressed on, refusing to stall now. At the time, we had no way to conclusively expose her deceit. Until now. I gestured to Owen, who unfurled photocopies of falsified medical charts documenting her elaborate paternity ruse. We have substantial evidence suggesting she lied about expecting a child back then. Lied to steal Scott from his family. Mouths gaped in astonishment reading Owen's documents. I scanned familiar faces I had smiled alongside at barbecues and birthdays in another life, before everything shattered. Neighbors I had embraced for consolation after Scott left, never suspecting some secretly harbored doubts about my intentions and innocence. Their eyes reflected swirling shock and contrition at long last recognizing Tessa's schemes. "Lainey," her cousin Alicia finally murmured, "is this all true? We had no idea." Remorse and dawning comprehension dawned across rescued relics from my past, bonding with me against our common enemy. Suddenly, Owen yelped a warning as Tessa burst violently back into the room, wielding Scott by the collar. "Tell them, Scott!" She was deranged, mascara etching ghoulish circles around fiery eyes. "Tell everyone about our baby, our son! Tell them!" She shook Scott by the neck like a limp rag doll. His eyes implored help, flitting frantically around the room. My heart clenched seeing the broken man too weak to free himself from her clutches, much less salvage my reputation years ago when it mattered most. When defending my honor could have preserved our family before she sank manipulative claws. I realized with startling clarity how trauma bonds and sunk costs had eroded his will. Owen extended a hand cautiously towards her. "Tessa, let the man speak for himself." His tone balanced authority and empathy. Eyes wild, she shoved Scott forward, causing him to stumble awkwardly. "Go ahead, Scott. Tell these vicious liars that I had your baby 6 years ago. Your son. Tell them now." All eyes fixed on Scott, shifting uncomfortably in the spotlight of scrutiny. His eyes locked on mine for a split second. A silent apology flickering across the years that had aged us. Then he turned to face our audience. The room braced for his statement to corroborate or condemn Tessa's tale. Well, Scott stammered, shrinking under the intensity. "I mean, at the time, I was certain. We took the paternity test. I just don't know anymore, honestly." He looked at the floor despairingly while Tessa stomped her foot, nostrils flaring. "What is wrong with you, Scott? I need you to handle this, do you hear me? This is all lies. We have a child." Owen stepped forward and touched her shoulder gingerly. She recoiled as if scalded. "Tessa, listen to me. The darkness cannot withstand the light of truth." He glanced meaningfully at the documents in Guest's hands, then into her eyes. "This no longer needs to define you. But the time for lies and games is over." His words pierced her delusions, reality crashing over her. She collapsed into a sequined heap, wailing inconsolably. 2 friends rushed to escort her limp, trembling body outside. Murmurs engulfed the room as shock waves rocked foundations of belief about her credibility. Owen wrapped a sturdy arm around me, pressing his lips close to my ear. "You were amazing. It's over. Tessa won't recovering from this." I gazed into the eyes of past acquaintances, illuminated with dawning truth. The taste of vindication flooded my soul as deception corroding my life finally drained away. I blinked back tears of relief. No, she won't recover. My nightmare with her is finally over. I awoke the next morning enveloped in Owen's protective embrace, momentarily disoriented. Then the previous night came flooding back. Exposed secrets, Tessa's public collapse, the reversal of years wrongly blamed for dissolution of my family. I lay still, letting waves of realization wash over me that her facade had finally fallen. Owen began stirring, pulling me tighter against his chest with a contented sigh. "How'd you sleep?" His morning voice rumbled gravelly in my ear. "Better that I have in years, honestly." Relief flooded me. Knowing I don't ever have to dread her popping up unexpectedly again, it feels freeing beyond description. Owen propped up on an elbow, eyes dancing playfully. "So exposing her lies helped you turn the page on the past, finally?" "Absolutely. You gave me closure I realize I was still missing." I leaned up for a languid kiss, hoping he felt the depth of my gratitude. We spent the morning leisurely recounting Tessa reactions as her web unraveled the previous night. The deranged shrieking, the violence with which she dragged in a shell-shocked Scott seeking public vindication. I shuddered recalling her manic efforts to compel his corroboration. "Think her meltdown will be enough for Scott to finally leave her for good?" I mused. Owen snorted. "Seeing her full psychosis on display? He'd be insane not to realize it's time to cut ties." I nodded slowly, considering Scott's haggard appearance, the haunted eyes of one held captive too long with no fight left to free himself. Maybe this gave him the strength he needs. I hope so. We spent the remainder of the weekend in a cheerful bubble of domestic bliss, spirits lighter than they'd been in ages. No dark clouds lingered on my horizon, thanks to Owen vanquishing ghosts that had haunted me. That bubble burst abruptly Monday afternoon with an urgent pounding on our front door. I opened it to find a rain-drenched Scott swaying unsteadily. Red rimmed his eyes like he'd aged a decade since the party. "Lainey, I'm so sorry to ambush you, but everything is falling apart. Tessa's locked herself in the bedroom, making bizarre threats unless I publicly retract everything." His voice broke pleadingly. "Can we talk inside?" I ushered him in, heart clenching seeing his bedraggled state. Owen rushed over with blankets and coffee as Scott collapsed on our couch, shivering. Gradually the events spilled out, Tessa refusing to eat, carry on hysterically, or see reason after her schemes exploded at the party. I had no idea she was like this. I swear it. Everything made so much sense at first. Remorse etched every line of his face. Now I don't know how to get us out of this nightmare. She's fully lost grip on reality. I crouched to study the shell of a man deteriorated from the one I'd loved in our early days, back when laughter came easy and joy fueled our dreams of a future unfolding together. Before Tessa sank her claws, twisting Scott so entirely he abandoned our marriage for her illusion. Empathy flickered, realizing perhaps he had merely been her broken pawn all along. Owen handed Scott a fresh mug, eyes full of compassion. "Don't worry, brother. We are going to help you. Tessa needs serious help, and you deserve to be free." They exchanged a look heavy with unspoken redemption. I reached for Owen's hand, blinking back tears at the display of undeserved mercy towards Scott. Perhaps cycles of deception could finally grind to a halt, setting all captives free. Day melted into evening as we outlined intervention plans and contact numbers for Tessa. Scott insisted relocating a few towns away once released from hospital care, desperate to escape the smothering wreckage. Hours later, I waved goodbye to the shadow of a man I once loved, still drenched but eyes glinting renewed hope. I watched the darkness engulf his retreating form, leaving the past to close mercifully behind him. A year whirled past in a flurry of changes. New jobs, a new house, fiery sunsets on the balcony tucked under Owen's arm. We received only sporadic updates on Tessa, who reportedly stabilizing while continuing intensive counseling. Scott had safely relocated hours away, escaping the oppressive weight of their former dysfunction to cautiously begin rebuilding life on his own terms. I awake early on the anniversary of the baby shower, golden beams filtering across our bedroom as my mind churns through memories of the saga's start. The initial staggering request for cash that lured me back into confrontation with troubled ghosts of my past. I reflect on Owen and I bonding tightly against her offenses, drawing strength from partnership. A smile tugs my mouth, remembering our stealth maneuvers choreographing her downfall. Owen stirs, stretching lazily before pulling me close. "You're up early. What's going on in that head of yours?" His voice rumbles husky with sleep. I roll to face him, heart swelling with affection. Just thinking about everything that happened since Tessa's message arrived. I was so fragile when all this started. Owen nods, eyes softening, recalling my distress. You saw my wounds and helped heal them, stood by me until justice was served. Owen props up on an elbow, toying idly with my curls. I meant what I said. You deserve to have her lies exposed publicly to clear your name. I wanted to free you from the burden she forced you to carry all those years. I lean in for a lingering kiss, praying he understands the depths of my gratitude. Owen had championed me when no one else would, offering long overdue vindication. The gift of closure finally helped exorcise ghosts of betrayal and heartache that once haunted me. Later that afternoon, I stand at the kitchen window, absently scrubbing dishes. I register movement in the yard peripherally as a strange vehicle pulls up. My pulse quickens, seeing Scott unfold slowly from the driver's seat. Owen joins me, puzzled, as we watch Scott approach, clasping a bouquet of wildflowers from our gardens. I numbly swing the door open in stunned silence. Scott shifts his weight nervously before clearing his throat. Hey there. I know the surprise visit is out of nowhere. I just wanted to bring these by in person today. He extends the makeshift bouquet tentatively. A small token to try saying what words can't adequately express. I accept the fragrant blooms, speechlessly. Scott goes on haltingly. I know flowers could never make up for all that happened over the years, for choices I made that caused you immense pain. His eyes glisten with remorse, especially for not believing you about Tessa's schemes at the time. But I hope you know how deeply I regret it all. How sorry I am now that the fog has lifted. His voice cracks under the freight of carrying immense guilt and grief over paths not taken. My heart twists seeing his sorrow, awakening trace forgiveness, I believed forever smothered by resentments. I grasp Scott's shaking hands in mine. It's okay. Let's agree to leave heaviness of the past behind us, once and for all time. I squeeze gently, willing self-condemnation to lift from this broken man. I sense Owen shift subtly behind me, signaling his loving support. Scott manages a watery chuckle. You always were gracious and understanding, even when I surely didn't deserve it. He looks at me meaningfully. Thank you for this closure. Be well. You both deserve all the happiness. I watch Scott's retreating form until he is gone, taking with it the last remnants of turmoil that had colored so many years. I turn to find Owen wiping his eyes furtively. Strong arms pull me against his chest as relief floods me. The scales now balanced between us all. Liberation comes wave after healing wave. I spend the evening tucked under Owen's arm, scrolling old photos. Scott grinning on our wedding day, a newborn swaddled and helpless. Bittersweet nostalgia wells up, remembering joy and devastating heartache, years condensed into files on my phone. Owen glances over. No more ghosts, he asks gently. I smile up at him, fully present. No more ghosts stirring up the past, just peace and so much hope for the future now with you. And I know in my soul I am finally free.